Hey everyone, in this video I'll show you differences between Python 2 and Python 3. So I'm gonna show you 11 differences between Python 2 and Python 3. Okay, so the first thing is that Python 2 was started in 2000 and Python 3 was started in 2008. Python 3 is the latest Python version and it was started to fix all the problems in Python 2. The second one is that Python 3 is not backward compatible. So if you are working on a project which is written in Python 2, then it will be easy for you to move to Python 3. But if you are working on a project which is written in Python 3, then it will be difficult to move to Python 2. And the third one is, let me go here, yeah. And third one is that the syntax of Python 3 is simpler than Python 2. So if you are just starting Python, then I would suggest you to go with Python 3 because the Python 2 is now deprecated. That means the development of Python 2 is stopped into the 2020 and it is discontinued. So you will not get any update on Python 2, but you will keep getting updates on Python 3. And also, like most of the libraries which were written in Python 2 are slowly migrating to Python 3, and you will find most new libraries written only in Python 3. So you can have actually both in one system. So I'm opening one ID. It's called VS Code. In my next video, I'll show you how to set up this ID, how you can write your first Python code. But for now, you can see that this is the terminal, and this is one file I'm opening. It is example.py. Py extension is used for Python. So here I can write Python and it will start the interactive Python shell. So I can just write quit and it will exit from here. Okay, so if I write Python minus version, then you can see that it's showing Python 2. Similarly, this is another terminal. Both are pointing to desktop folder and the example.py is in the desktop folder. So I have both Python 2 and Python 3 installed. So if I write Python 3 minus version, then it will show me Python 3. So if I have to run the code that is written in this example.py file using Python 2, I will write Python example.py. And if I have to do the same using Python 3, I can write Python 3 example.py. Okay, now let's move to the next difference. This is the difference of division of integers. So if I suppose I'm writing print 10 by 3, so I'm dividing 10 by 3. If I run it here using Python 2, you can see that it's printing 3, and if I run it Python 3, then you can see that it's printing this. So in Python 2 we'll always get an integer, and in Python 3 we'll get a float. So this is one of the most important changes that was did since in Python 3. The next one is that string is stored as Unicode in Python 3, but it is ASCII in Python 2. Okay, let me create one string. So we can create a string like this, and let me create one Unicode string. Okay, for Unicode string you have to use this U, and we can check the type of these strings. I have to write this print type h1. Now let's try to run this in Python 2. Then you can see that for the first one it's printing that it's of type string, the second one is Unicode. And if I run it in Python 3, then you can see that both are printed as the type string. So this is the difference. String is stored as Unicode in Python 3. Then the next one is that print function. It is different in both Python 2 and Python 3. Okay, the print is a keyword in Python 2. So we have to use it like this. And if I try to run it, then you can see that it's printing hello. But if I try to run it, then it's showing me syntax error. Okay, so for Python 3 I have to use it as this function. So print this since to a function in Python 3. So you can see that's printing hello. It actually works in Python 2 as well. The next one is that xrange. This function is no longer available in Python 3. So what is this? Let me show you. So xrange function, it returns a range object, so we can use it in, mostly it is used in loops like for I in xrange 3, then I'm printing the value of y. So it is we can use it only in Python 2. So if I run it, then you can see that it's printing 0, 1 and 3. But if I try to run it in Python 3, let me change the I print, then it will throw me one name error that extension is not defined. In Python 3 we can use range, but the difference is that it will work, it will print the same data, same values. The difference is that range will return a list, but exchange returns an xrange object. The next one is that exception raising is different. So if you're throwing an exception, it's different for both Python 2 and Python 3. Okay, so in Python 2 we have to raise the exception like this and the comment. So if I write it in Python 2, then you can see that it is showing the exception, name error exception occurred. But if I try to run it in Python 3, then you can see that it's throwing syntax error because it's not a valid syntax for Python 3. So in Python 3 we have to write it like this. We can name the exception and we can enclose the arguments in parentheses. So if I run it now, then it will give me the same exception. Handling the exception is also different in both Python 2 and Python 3. Okay, so let me create a try gets block. Okay, then this is not defined blah, so it will throw one exception. So this is the way we can get exception in Python. So this is in Python 2. I can write like this. Okay, if I print it, then you can see name blah is not defined exception. So it is printing this exception p. So if I remove this, then also you can see that name blah is not defined. Now if you want to run it in Python 3, then you have to use it as this, like this. Okay, now if I run it, then you can see that it's printing this exception. But if I use comma and if I try to run it, then you can see that it's throwing invalid syntax. The next one is the global variable leak in Python 2. Okay, in Python 2, if you use global variable in another loop, then its value, it will be changed, but in Python 3 it will not change. Okay, so let's use the print statement. It will work in both Python 2 and Python 3. And here I'm using a loop, and let me create it. Okay, and let's print it again. Now let's try to run this program in Python 2. Then you can see that it's printed 10, then it's printing 4. So what it's doing actually, so it's taking the range 5. So for each 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, it's sending the value of I, and the final value of I is 4. So that's the reason it's printing 4. But if we use the same code in Python 3, then you can see that the value of I is not changed. So this is one important changes that was done in Python 3. Then the last one is that input functions is different for Python 2 and Python 3. It reads the data as integer in Python 2, but it reads the data as a string in Python 3. Okay, let me show you. So by using input function, we can take an input from a user. So let's say I'm asking the user to enter a value, and here we can print the type of this input. Okay, now if I this is running in Python 3 actually, so let me run it in Python 2. So you can see that the type is integer, and if I run it in Python 3, then you can see that the type is string. So if you have to take the input as a string, then you have to use this raw input in Python 2. So now it's taking it as string, and if I write 12, then you can see that's taking the input as a string. But in Python 2, if I try to run it, then it's throwing an error because raw input is not defined. It is handled by input. And if you want to convert it to integer, then you can just use this in Python 3. Now if I run it in Python 3, then you can see that it's of type integer. So these are the main differences between Python 2 and Python 3. So if you have any questions, please drop one comment below. And if you love my video, please do like and please subscribe to my channel. Thanks. Bye.